My name is Angelica Pilayo. Multicultural diversity, a challenge to a global teacher. According to Confucius, all people are pretty much alike. It is only by culture that they are set apart. For example, the teacher taught an English subject to his student who is Filipino and American. They both understand English, but when it comes to speaking English, the American student is better at speaking English. Why? Because American student native language is English and the Filipino student is Tagalog. So they are different when it comes to language because they have different culture. What is cultural diversity? Cultural diversity is the cultural variety and cultural differences that exist in the world, a society, or an institution. We need to appreciate that society or an institution is made up of many different groups of people with different interests, skills, and needs. It also means that we recognize that people in society or an institution can have different religious beliefs, language, and culture. So, what is culture? Culture is the values, traditions, social and worldview shared by a group of people bound together by a combination of factors. What is the major goal of multicultural education? The major goal of multicultural education is to transform the school so that the male and female students, exceptional learners, as well as students coming from diverse culture, social class, racial, and ethnic an equal opportunity to learn in school, where everyone has fair and equal access to a good quality education, regardless of social background, race, gender, or religion, and where students achieve success in education according to their effort and ability, free of any form of discriminations. Diversity of learners and multicultural education. A student may differ in race, ethnic or religious groups, economic status, language spoken, family background. Some could be stricken by poverty, unemployment, relocation, etc. In classroom with diverse students, the teacher must provide various approaches in teaching. A teacher should be sensitive enough when it comes to the learner's race, ethnic or religious groups, economic status, language spoken, family backgrounds, etc. Teachers need to address these differences. And in multicultural classroom is not merely to create awareness of differences between students but broadens to horizon of teacher. Since the teacher considers the student's background, he or she can expand his or her knowledge and strategies as well.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Rica May Enrique Simino, and now we were going to tackle on how we are going to receive equal opportunities to education and the multicultural education. In the midst of this diversity, students are supposed to receive equal opportunities to education. But in order to achieve equal opportunities to education, we need to have these three strategies. And if you're going to ask why, it is simply because these three strategies are made to help the students adopt easily on classroom and understand the topic or discussion easily. Let's start with the first strategy, the curricular and instructional modification. Using instructional modification to help the material more manageable and for the students to learn at their present level rather than failing to comprehend information above their standing. And teachers' involvement in the process of curricular and instructional modification is the important to align an important part of teaching. Next, having different teaching styles. This is necessary because the students need to be able to learn what the teacher is teaching and also to avoid boredom on class. Teachers should be competent, knowledgeable, and innovative enough in order to impart the knowledge they could give to their students. So, their students will be more attentive and energetic on class, especially if teachers' teaching styles would fit in a class and it's used consistently, then students are motivated to learn. And the most importantly, there should be a examination of teachers' attitude, belief, and perception to have a mutual understanding among teachers and students. They should have the same point of view to smoothen the flow of teaching and improving educational processes. Teachers' attitude, beliefs, and self-efficacy perceptions are conditions that has the potential of affecting reform efforts in multicultural education. So there must be treat each other with dignity, respect, fairness, truthfulness, and freedom. Let's now talk about the multicultural education. But what exactly is the multicultural education? Here are some information that will clarify about it. Multicultural education enables teachers and educators to give value to the differences in our knowledge, experiences of learners from diverse backgrounds and familiarity with students' histories and diverse cultures. Generally speaking, multicultural education is predicated on the principle of educational equity for all students, regardless of culture, and strives to remove barriers to educational opportunities and success for students from different cultural backgrounds. Multicultural education also assumes that way in which students learn and think deeply influenced by their cultural identity and heritage, and that to teach culturally diverse students effectively requires educational approaches that will value and recognize their cultural backgrounds. In practice, educators may modify or eliminate educational policies, programs, materials, lessons, and instructional practices that are either discriminatory toward or insufficiently inclusive of diverse cultural perspective. Here are some few representative ways in multicultural education may play out in schools. Number 1, learning content. Text and learning materials may include multiple cultural perspectives and references. Number 2, critical analysis. Both educators and students might analyze their own cultural assumptions and discuss how learning materials, teaching practices, or school policies reflect cultural bias and how they could be changed to eliminate bias. Number 3, students' cultures. Teachers and students or other educators may learn about the cultural background of students in a school and then intentionally incorporate learning experiences and content relevant to their personal cultural perspectives and heritage.
Good afternoon everyone, my name is Christine P. Mayo. Ang na-assign kong topic sa akin is how to achieve its goals. To achieve its goals is very important for a teacher to be knowledgeable about the difference in culture, region, and ethnicity, and even language spoken by the students. Teachers have being a descriptive role model in help students not only set goals, develop the plan. Base your activities without a multicultural framework will make your classroom a safe and a secure place for all the students. Influence multicultural instructional materials and strategy in your teachings. Diversity in the school of the country as well as in the other school in the world. It is also an opportunity on a country as well as in the other country are inserted by the ethical, cultural, and language or diversity among the citizens in among its school. Whenever this diversity exists, through group or session and discrimination develop, this become an opportunity from a teacher in school of help and help individual and citizens. Number 1 is free service at teacher educations. Program should help a perceptive teacher understands and complex characteristics of ethical groups in ways, race and cultural, language and social class, integral and influence of students' behavior. Teachers should help students acquire social skills and need to interact effectively with students from to other backgrounds, ethical, cultural, language of social group. The school curriculum helps students understand that knowledge is a social constructed and are reflective of the social, political, and economic contents in which they live in the world. Number 4. School should have provided all students with opportunity of a participant in extra of curriculum activities that develop a knowledge, skill, and attitudes that create academic achievement and causes a positive intercultural relationship. Number 5. The teacher should teaching in a student should out learning about the value sharing in virtual by all cultural groups like a justice, equality, a freedom, a place, compassion, and a cherish among the others. Basics and assumptions that NTC teachers and develop. Basic intention and ethnicity teachers develop. No two learning are presented the same. The children is all the classroom are engineering.
Goals of multicultural education. Develop and foster a democratic and just society where all groups experience cultural democracy and empowerment. And that's multicultural education aims to help the students to feel free and experiencing and showing their culture. This also aims to empower and encourage the students to share to other students how rich their culture is. And next is improve academic achievements of all students. And that's multicultural education aims to help the students to have an excellent performance in academic with equality regardless of the culture the students are in. And next is help the students to develop the knowledge, attitudes, microculture, and within global community. And that's multicultural education aims to help the students develop their knowledge, skills, and talents while interacting with other students of different culture. There could be an instance wherein different students of different culture can combine their ideas that can result to helpful ideas for the community. This can also be a way for a more united groups of culture. And last, provide opportunities to gain culture competency. And that's multicultural education aims to set the mind of the student that even though their culture is different from the others, he or she can excel and can get the best opportunities the community has no offer to offer. And that's all. Thank you.
Great day everyone, I am Jessamine Tiboran and I am here to discuss to you and elaborate about the suggestions to understand multicultural learners. The first suggestion is avoid stereotyping. Stereotype threats describe as the fear of being judged on the basis of negative stereotypes and the fear of doing something that would confirm those stereotypes, which can lead to reduced academic achievements and can affect students' social emotional well-being. Each of us have work to do to address stereotype threats that our students are facing, whether it can be based on race, gender, learning differences, sexual orientation, or religion. Based on my research, there are 5 strategies to address stereotype threats. The first one is check your bias at the door. The best way to identify our biases is by taking an inward look at ourselves and being honest about what we discover. The second one is to create a welcoming environment free from bias in your discipline. Creating an environment free from judgment and free from biases is the responsibility of all educators. Educators should also work towards learning about the background of their students so they understand the students' cultural and social norms. The third one is be diverse in what you read and teach. Your classroom materials should be mirror for your students in which they can see themselves represented. We need to push our thinking in this area. Even our classrooms are not diverse. We should expose our students to multiple perspectives and people because it teaches them the empathy and diversity. The fourth one is to honor multiple perspectives in your classroom. However, we need to foster an environment where students can hear from others who may not hold the same views as them, and we must allow them to feel safe in doing so. The last one is have a courageous conversation. When we reflect on our biases and create safe spaces in our classroom, we create opportunities for powerful conversation with our students. We are likely to have eye-opening, perspective-shifting moments, and we also make mistakes. Be human enough to admit and correct them. The second suggestion to understand multicultural learner is to get to know each student as a unique individual. Walk in the footsteps in all your students. Each student is a unique individual, different in cognitive and affective development, social maturity, ability, motivation, aspiration, learning styles, needs, interests, and potential. It should aim for understanding why students are able or unable to learn well, and finding appropriate ways to help them learn better. Understanding your students' interests will help you to provide them with quality learning opportunities by giving them the opportunities to explore areas that they are interested in. Knowing that some students may express themselves in different ways may help teachers plan for these differences and understand the most positive response. Studying and understanding different cultures allow the teacher to better understand why the child reacts and interacts in the school structures the way they do. For example, a father said to his son, "Be careful where you walk." The son responded, "You be careful, remember that I follow in your footsteps." From that example, we can replace the word father and son to many other expressions, and we still keep the meaning of it. It is very hard to see the full impact of the actions, yet having a more clear conscience about it will go long way. So for other suggestions include look for your own subconscious and conscious biases about the people who are different from yourself. When we say conscious bias, it refers to the attitude that we are aware of. We know we are being biased and we are doing it intentionally. On the other hand, unconscious bias or implicit biases or attitude that are held subconsciously and affect the way individuals feel and think about others around them. And subconscious attitudes are not necessarily as well-formed as coherent thoughts, but they can be varied. Example, a person prepares to work with men rather than women, or a person who doesn't like to associate people with different culture. These are all prejudice which can discriminate against certain group of people.
So good day everyone, I am Jem Rosuelo, the presenter for today. So now, let's continue the discussion about the other suggestions include to understand multicultural learners. So plan your activities within a multicultural framework while making your classroom a safe and secure place for all of these students. So before that, what do you mean by multicultural framework? So for multicultural, it means teaching to diverse students for equality. Then, according to James Banks, his first dimension of framework is the content integration, looks to naturally infuse content which is relevant to the culture and background of your students. So next is the knowledge design, which you can discuss the cultural frames of reference biases, generalizations, and assumptions. The third dimension of framework is the prejudice reduction. Students will develop their appreciation in understanding other cultures by recognizing negative stereotypes. And the last dimension of framework is the equity pedagogy. Teachers will plan their lesson with various strategies that are beneficial to diverse cultures. And according to the other suggestions included, You should make your classroom a safe and secure place for all of these students. So, example for this is while you're planning to make an activity, make sure that it will always be given inside the classroom to make your students feel safe and secure. Next is infuse multicultural instructional materials and strategies in your teaching. So, in my explanation, you can choose any type of instructional materials in your teaching. Example are printed materials, visual which is very traditional, audio and audiovisual which is modern. So, for this strategy, you can insert games while you're teaching or differentiate your teaching according to the students' abilities to make sure that no one gets left behind. So, is foster collaboration and cooperation among your learners, parents, and teachers. When we say collaboration and cooperation, it is the process of two or more people or organization keep working together to complete a task or to achieve a goal. So we all know that having general meetings is the most important day at the end of the session. We can see that the parents and teachers collaborate and cooperate together to make sure that their learners are active during the session. And having this kind of collaboration and cooperation can also help your learners to succeed. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening, and now let's proceed to the next presenter.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ronly R. Tobias, and the topic that I will present to you is all about the basic assumptions that enhance teachers' development. So, we have 5 basic assumptions. First one is no two learners are exactly the same. So, what does it mean? It means that all learners are diverse. Each of them has different personalities, talents, skills, and abilities. Their way of learning also varies. Some can learn from a quiet place, but others cannot. Some learners, especially in lower grade, teachers can know or identify who is fast and slow learners. So the second basic assumptions is children in all classrooms are heterogeneous. So, from the word hetero, it means they are different from each other. Heterogeneous is a type of distribution of students among various classrooms. A distribution tactic wherein diverse students are placed in a different classrooms so that they can apply their skills and abilities more evenly. Third basic assumptions is strategies that work with one learner may not work with another. So what does it mean? It means that teaching strategies must support students' individuality. As teacher, learn to set up different learning stations that support different learning methods and rotate students between tasks. So for example, one station might include watching video, another might require students to read an article, and third might involve creating a piece of artwork or constructing a puzzle. Fourth basic assumptions is student background and experiences should be considered when teaching. So, why background and experiences considered? As far as I know, it is very important for teachers to know their background and experiences so that teachers should have a background knowledge about the learners to help make connections to them between the lesson in order to validate learners' culture and experiences and can catch their greatest interest during the lesson. So, the fifth and last basic assumptions to enhance teachers' development is community members from various ethnic groups can assist teachers in facing issues of ethnic differences and similarities. So, community members can be a teacher aid to assist teachers with various ethnic groups. They will be a big help to sustain teaching learning process. I asked my sister as a teacher in elementary school for almost 3 years, and I asked her on how she developed her skills in teaching, and she said that a good teacher knows and understands learners, how they develop and learn, and that one fits all approach doesn't work. They do not learn at the same way and at the same rate. Each child has different needs, skills, and learning styles. Like John is different from Peter. So as a teacher, I must be an effective diagnostician, their interests, abilities, and prior knowledge. So that's all guys. Thank you for your listening. And I hope you understand and I hope you learn from what I discuss. Thank you.
The challenges of cultural diversity. We have tri-component models of attitudes, which are the cognitive, affective, and behavioral. Cognitive is the assumptions are made about a group of people or person. Affective is feelings are friendly, neutral, or hostile towards a group of people based on the assumption, while behavioral is the behavior towards a group of people is influenced by the assumption. Cognitive and affective is under or prejudiced, while behavior is the discrimination. What is cultural diversity? It refers to the many cultural, racial, and ethnic groups in the society. We have factors that may lead to a cultural prejudice: cultural insensitivity and lack of awareness, work ethic and approach to completing tasks, decision-making styles, and different verbal and non-verbal communication styles. Expression of prejudice. We have three expressions under of prejudice, which are the xenophobia, ethnocentrism, and racism. Xenophobia is the fear of or strong animosity towards people of different races or cultural backgrounds. Ethnocentrism is the belief that one's own ethnicity or culture is superior to all the others, while racism is negative emotions or actions towards someone simply based on their. What is an attitude? According to Albert 1935, attitude is a learned, stable, and relatively enduring evaluation of a person that can affect an individual's behavior. We have two attitudes, the explicit and the implicit. Explicit is one that individuals is open about and that is aligned with their behavior, while implicit attitude is involuntary, uncontrolled, or unconscious that individuals are often unaware they hold even though they may influence their behavior. And also, we have a racism about the attitudes. Explicit racism and the implicit racism. Explicit racism is a negative behavior towards members of a particular cultural group that are overt and intentional in nature. An example of that is actions of hate groups such as neo-Nazis, Ku Klux Klan, and white nationalists. Implicit racism. Implicit racism is a negative behavior towards members of a particular cultural group that is covert and often unconscious or concealed. One example of implicit racism is police pulling drivers over due to the color of their skin. Pre-service teacher education programs should help prospective teachers understand the complex characteristic of ethnic groups and ways of their race, ethnicity, language, and social class interact to influence student behaviors. Pre-service teacher education programs help the teachers to be knowledge about how they will interact to the ethnic groups on the way of their race, ethnicity, language, and social class, and how the social class interact to influence the student's behavior. Teachers should help students acquire social skills needed to interact effectively with students from other racial, ethnic, cultural, language, of social groups. When the teachers have a knowledge how to interact with the different groups of ethnic, they will also help the students how to interact, socialize, and to communicate to other ethnic groups. And it helps them to build a strong and friendly communication.
Good day everyone, my name is Mary Jane Salazar Santa Clara. School curriculum helps the student to know and to have their knowledge about the social, political, and economic. Let's talk about first the social. What is social? Social is needing companionship, therefore best suited to living in commonalities. We are social being as well as individual. Second, political is the government of a public affairs of a country, a period of political and economic stability. Economic is must become larger if they are remain in the context of where they live or work. They need to understand all of that so they have a background about it. School should provide all extracurricular activities like sport. For example of sport is basketball, volleyball, and etc. So the student can build their skills and knowledge, and also to make friends, and also to gain more knowledge and to increase their level of knowledge when it comes to academic and relation between culture. Teacher should teach and student should learn with everyone that shared about culture. For example is the teacher will give the materials of the lesson about the justice, equality, freedom, peace, compassion, and clarity among others.